I know that many of you already know SIETAR, but a few of you may not. But this session today, it's really looking at language teachers as intercultural facilitators and what we can do to develop that and make that work. And we have a wonderful panel who are all here. So Young Han, who's also Sarah, Hayon, Unji, and Joyce Gore, who are the teachers that participated in this project, which they're going to tell us all about shortly. So we're looking forward to that. A little bit more on the next slide about SIETAR. So many of you already know SIETAR is the Society for Intercultural Education, Training and Research, and we are the Southeast Asia part of that. And these are, what we are about. We really are about developing the application of knowledge and values and skills in that area to enable effective intercultural relations. These are our values, which we hope to display in all our sessions in openness, tolerance, diversity, and inclusion. And of course, we are open to those who are based in or interested in Southeast Asia.
I don't want to drag.
Okay, and just a few details specifically about SIETAR Southeast Asia. So these are some of the things that we're focusing on, particularly on the countries and cultures of Southeast Asia. And this is part of our program of bi-monthly events. We're also aiming to have a conference later this year, which we hope will be a hybrid. And we're still working on the details and the dates for that. Finally, just one more slide, and then I'm going to hand over to the panel. So this is some of the previous sessions we've had. So some of the examples, 2 months in March, we had a wonderful session led by Arti on how women work in Asia, based on her book. And we also looked at the Year of the Rabbit and the history and the iconography of the rabbit, and particularly in this part of the world. And we've had many other very varied topics and areas of discussion. But I'm not going to take up any more of your time. So without further ado, let me hand over to Sarah. I believe you're going to be leading and introducing our panel for the day. And thank you once again for doing this for us.
Thank you, Joyce. Hey, can everyone see the screen? Awesome. Okay. Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're connecting from. It's so wonderful to be here, to be able to share with you some of our truly amazing experiences working together as intercultural educators. As Joyce mentioned, my name is Sarah, and I'll be the moderator / one of the speakers for today, along with my good colleague, Dr. Sung-Young Yu, who kindly offered to help moderate the session. So going to the next slide, I'd like to start off today's webinar with a kind of big overview of what our project was about, followed by a quick ice-breaking activity, and then the highlight, each teacher sharing of their experiences and lessons learned, finishing off with the panel discussion and Q&A. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to just drop them on the chat, and we'll be sure to get to them at the end. So first, I wanted to open up with these two big questions. Please type in the chat your response to these questions. What image, word, phrase comes to your mind when you hear the phrase intercultural educator? And along with that, can you remember any experiences having taught by or worked with intercultural educator, and what did it look like? And when we say educator, it can be in private sectors, public sectors, however you define it. So please drop them on the chat. Either answers to either of these questions is fine. Okay, multinational background, helping people to cross cultural boundaries. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. It's regular for 69 years. Wow. Yes, I believe so, Vincent. Yes. Essential, but not always appreciated. Being in the middle of Venn diagram, excuse me. Being in the middle of Venn diagram. I like that. Someone who helps open minds. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. So we actually entitled our project as kind of becoming intercultural educators. And the tool that we use to for us to really become intercultural educators was this thing called virtual exchange. So rather than me explaining it, let's watch this short video clip, which explains the overview of what virtual exchange is.
Today, young people need more opportunities to communicate and collaborate with peers from different places and backgrounds. Virtual exchange is an innovative way to give young people the knowledge, skills, and experiences they need to address global challenges and participate in the 21st century workforce. Through virtual exchange, young people become active global citizens and professionals. Virtual exchange uses technology to connect people for education and exchange over a sustained period of time. Typically, virtual exchange serves young people, links participants from different countries, seeks to develop global competencies and other skills, and is facilitated by trained educators. What does virtual exchange look like? At its most basic level, virtual exchange uses technology to bring young people together. These interactions come in many forms, including paired courses, pitch competitions, and hackathons that include collaborative project-based learning. Video conference dialogues and language learning practice activities are also common. Virtual exchange programs are implemented in many ways by a variety of people and organizations. Young people might connect through a school or university course, during an after-school club, at a weekend conference, or even from their own homes. Many programs involve sharing written or recorded messages. Some programs also involve live communication through video conference. Virtual exchange programs can vary widely in topic, technology tools, and amount of activity. No matter the form that it takes, virtual exchange can expand access to meaningful international learning and experiences. Our research shows that virtual exchange helps young people learn how to communicate and collaborate with people from different backgrounds and increase their knowledge and curiosity about different cultures. In the words of one participant, in virtual exchange, you really get to learn first and then apply what you learned. You get to master content and collaborate with others all over the world, no matter the distance, language, or time barriers.
Okay, so that's what virtual exchange was about. And it was important for me to share this with you because it was kind of like the foundation of our work, the context of our work together. So now thinking about how teachers come about these virtual exchange learning tasks, right? One thing that I witnessed and read over the years is that the focus of virtual exchange has often lingered at cultural differences and unreflective exchange of factual information. And according to research, the reasoning behind this is primarily due to teachers' limited understanding of the notion of culture and what intercultural teaching and learning looks like, which results in a superficial level of engagement between cultural partners. So that being said, I decided to design a virtual professional development, in short PD program, hoping to provide teachers with a space where they can explore and learn about the concepts of culture and intercultural education. So for this project, our team consisted of 4 high school English language teachers, 2 from Korea and 2 from Taiwan, of the 3 who are here with us today. And from August until December, we had weekly Zoom meetings where I served as the facilitator. During the first phase of the PD, you can see on the little table over there at the bottom, we discussed topics ranging from what culture is to what it means to be intercultural language educators. With the academic readings and different hands-on activities, some of which teachers will more share about later, teachers developed understanding of how to design a virtual exchange for their students in a way that is more intercultural. And in doing so, one teacher from each country, so one from Korea, one from Taiwan, worked closely together, forming a binational pair in designing together the virtual exchange activities for their own classroom. The second phase of the PD was carried out in conjunction with this project that they created during the first phase of the PD, where students from both countries would engage in virtual exchange themselves. So in a nutshell, our project was essentially creating virtual exchange through virtual exchange, where teachers engaged in virtual exchange themselves first, and then incorporate their learning and understanding of what intercultural virtual exchange looks like into creating similar learning opportunities for their students. So handing over to Sang-Myung, she's going to talk with us about this cultural mapping activity.
Yes. So now, before we move on to hearing from each teachers in here today, we wanted to pause a little bit and switch gears and introduce this activity called culture mapping, which was one of the activities included in our professional development. So we are going to draw our own culture map. So please grab a piece of paper, any paper like this. It can be a small one or the big one, or you can use a technology tool like an iPad or a blank page on your device. And we're going to have a take approximately 5 minutes to create a map. And it does not need to be artistically elaborate, or it does not have to be fancy. And then after you drew your own culture map, we are going to share our work in small breakout rooms. So for this activity, we want you to create a socially significant map. So think about the neighborhood where you grew up, or the street you currently live on, or the place where you work. So your map can be based on any specific point in time. So it can be your childhood, or it can be just your current place. And you have the freedom to choose what you focus on. So selecting anything that holds personal significance for you. So it could be as small as your room, a house or classroom or building, or as expansive as an entire neighborhood, according to your definition. So feel free to use regular street maps like Google Maps or other diagrams as references, but remember that your aim is to produce something much more personal and meaningful than a typical street map. So find a way to represent on the map on the social and personal significance of that specific area. So if you are doing a map of your room, then you can also incorporate some of the objects or materials in your room to address the following prompts, like the places. So you can draw or mark first places you went, or who was there with you, and what you did or what happened, or moments in that space, and what stories or feelings emerged. So if you're ready, just bring your prepare your paper, or it can be, you can use your device. Then I will use this timekeeper for 5 minutes to draw your map. So just take your time and be creative and enjoy this opportunity to express the significance of your chosen area through your map. So anything that you want to add, Sarah, just in case?
No, just be very creative. We're not artists. We put some examples over there on the left side. I don't know if you can really see it, but it's, you know, it's some of it's from the teachers, and some of them are from the students as examples. So within the 5 minutes that we have, just, you know, think about the socially meaningful map of yours.
All right, everyone. So how was that? I think it's time for our breakout activity. So we'll give you 10 minutes to work on this sharing time in small groups. So it can be just a simple like introduce or describe the map you drew, like where is the place, where if you drew a people or the person and who is there. And if you have some stories in your map, then you can narratively describe it. So let's make the most of this time and dive into the activity together. So get ready to explore and share your socially significant maps. So Sarah, how can we make the breakout rooms?
Yep, it's ready now. So in
Perfect.
5 seconds, you will be sent into each rooms now. If you have any issues, do come back to the main rooms, please. All right, starting now.
Mm. It
Looks
seems
like everyone's back.
Yeah. Okay, welcome back. So how was it? So we are eager to hear about your experiences on this mapping activity. So we prepared 2 questions here. So how do you see this activity being a useful tool for intercultural education? And here's the other questions that we want to ask about is what themes related to cultural identity, language, and place came up as you were sharing your culture maps. So if you are not comfortable enough to sharing these experiences with these questions, then it is totally fine to share your overall impressions of this activity. So just feel free to type in your reaction to the chat box. Very useful tool to learn more about people's environment. and how they perceive the world around them. Oh, I'm really looking forward to see your map. Great to get to know people's cultural backgrounds. Yeah, to answer Jane's questions. Sarah, do you want to answer it? Yes, we did, but
The reason I'm asking this question is that in case of the students, if they are like a face-to-face, if they do this activity, they are how to say influenced by the friends a lot. So they just do based on the Korean education system and the way they are doing, mostly they just see what other friends are doing, and mostly the same way they try to do it. So if it is virtually, they are separate, it is more creative. But if it is in person basis, they try to see, oh, how can I start it? So somebody started, maybe the other friends are all following. So it will be more effective in virtual cases. That's what I can guess.
That is a very good question. And I feel like Joyce, Haeyeon, and Eunji, would you like to jump in and share some of your experiences answering to that wonderful question?
Oh yeah, I can. So we've tried, like in our own classroom, high school classrooms, we tried it. It's not virtually. We tried in class, in person, and I think it went quite well. Although, yeah, at first our students tend to not talk, but after like a few warm-ups and things like that, I think they start talking, and they start talking a lot. They overshare a lot of things, and sometimes I couldn't even tell them to stop. And also we've done it virtually with some college students, and it was also I think it was also quite good, and students tend to talk and get creative too. So I think it doesn't really matter if it's done virtually or not. Yeah.
Eunji, do you have anything to add? Because I know you also did it half virtually, half in person.
Yeah, I've done it virtually too, and students have talked about themselves more openly than I think. When I give them a chance to talk about themselves, they are very open to talk about themselves. And yes, the same as Joyce, students never stop talking about themselves. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I guess we'll go on to the next slide and then get into hearing from each of the teachers. I and Sangyeong won't interrupt in the middle. We'll just go, from one teacher to another, and then follow up with the panel discussion. If you have any questions that come up during the teacher's presentations part, please feel free to drop them on the chat, as I mentioned earlier. So Haeyeon, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Haeyeon. I work at Human High School in Korea, and I was lucky enough to participate in an intercultural project between Korea and Taiwan with several researchers, such as Sarah and Songmyoung over here, and a very good partner teacher named Stacy. And to briefly introduce what we did, we divided the sessions into asynchronous and synchronous sessions. And the asynchronous sessions were where students would get to know about the other country's culture, and they would also make a tree drawing based on what they already knew about that country. And we also conducted synchronous sessions where students would get to talk to each other face to face, virtually, of course, through Zoom. But we wanted to keep the synchronous sessions as authentic as possible, so we minimized teacher guidance and let the students talk based on the material that they created during the asynchronous sessions. Next slide. One of the things that I felt when conducting these intercultural projects was that really matters when it comes to collaboration. I had never worked with researchers before this intercultural project. I'd only worked with other teachers, but this new collaboration with researchers gave me new insights that I would not be able to come up with on my own. I took on a new position of teacher researcher, which is one of the terms that we learned about, um, and learned to think like a researcher when we were planning our activities. And we would conduct these weekly meetings. During our meetings, we tried out team building activities that we had planned for our students to do. And we also shared emails weekly to discuss our feelings and our findings that we had not had the chance to share during our weekly meetings. And the fact that we took the time to build a relationship amongst ourselves made for a warmer and more open, more encouraging atmosphere where we could speak our minds more freely and give constructive feedback. And I can say with some confidence that this warm report is what made our project so special, so memorable. And I think it also led to comparable atmosphere between the students. It also continued amongst the students. And I think it also, the fact that we had a warm relationship amongst ourselves, I think increased our motivation to participate in weekly meetings, which is not something easy to do with our daily schedule. But I think that's why a report really mattered during this collaboration. Next slide. I would also like to talk about another aspect of the intercultural project that we can all relate to. We had spent all this time planning during our weekly meetings so that students would have a good time during their exchange. But sometimes it just doesn't go as planned, and we're faced with unexpected moments that completely throws us off. And I have had some unexpected moments of my own during our intercultural project. Um, I can name a couple. This one time, we had our students draw trees and show them to the other team during their synchronous sessions, but there was a technical problem which prevented them from being able to recognize the letters from the drawing of the trees. Like, they would hold it up to the screen, but the technological problem prevented them from reading the others' trees, and this was not part of the plan, and we had to improvise on the spot, and students had to just communicate based on what they could hear. But overall, the students actually enjoy the conversation part more. So all in all, it turned out okay. But it was an unexpected moment. And another time, there was a miscommunication problem. One of the Taiwanese students was talking to my student, who was a guy, um, and the Taiwanese student who meant to say that she wanted to learn Korean so that she could meet a lot of handsome Korean guys. Um, but what she actually said was, I want to see handsome Korean guy. And my students were all males. So the student who heard that phrase understood it to mean that he was not handsome. And he responded by saying, I'm sorry, I'm not handsome. Luckily, I was there. So I could ask the teacher, Stacy, to correct this misunderstanding. Of course, the student who said, I want to see handsome Korean guy, of course, she meant it to say that she wanted to learn Korean to meet just handsome guys in general. And we corrected the misunderstanding. But it was such an unexpected moment. Um, and I was lucky enough to be there, but I don't know what would have happened if I wasn't. And next slide, please. These unexpected moments, even if we spend all this time, all these weeks planning before, I think unexpected moments are bound to happen, and we can all relate to this. but I think instead of thinking of these moments as errors, I'd like to think that these moments are what made me a better teacher, because through these moments, I have become more flexible and more ready for the next project. I know what to do, what to implement for the next project based on these moments. And if I go back to the miscommunication example, the handsome guy example, I now know that students may face such miscommunication when they talk to each other. So I plan to conduct a class beforehand, before the synchronous sessions, regarding etiquettes when talking to people from different cultures, and also how to deal when faced with those moments, like tell them to rephrase, like, are you saying that blah blah blah. Maybe I will teach them some expressions to deal with such moments. So what I'm trying to say from all these stories is that we all may have unexpected moments when conducting intercultural projects, but instead of panicking or being frustrated by these moments, if you think about it, these moments might actually be opportunities for you to become a better teacher. Thank you. I'll hand it off to Joyce now.
Okay, so hi, can you guys hear me? So yeah, I'm from Taiwan, and I'm really honored to have worked with Sarah and Haeyeon, and I'm also really honored to be here today. And so today so next slide, please. Thank you. So for today, I really want to focus on the preparation we've done before we started teaching. So about the team building activities and the readings, reflections, and discussions we've done. So what Sarah didn't mention at that time is that the papers were so thick, and it was a really hard time for us because we had to write a lot of reflections, and we are going really deep into our hearts, and it was really, sometimes you feel like you're naked. But yeah, from looking back from now, I really appreciate this kind of time, because this is what most intercultural projects don't do. Mostly we just get into the work, we don't really know each other. But without this step, I think people might missed a lot. So I'm going to tell you what I've learned that really makes this journey so different than others. So next slide, please. So first, for myself, I really define what culture means. So I realized that as a teacher, I've always been teaching mainstream culture. So for example, when we talk about Christmas, we also always say that, oh, so when we teach about American culture, we say that, oh, Americans put up Christmas trees, they exchange gifts and things like that. But now, after learning that culture is really, it means how an individual or every group of people might have different practices when facing the same situation. So for example, some people don't put up Christmas trees, some people celebrate Hanukkah instead of Christmas. So this really redefines how I look at what culture is. So this is a takeaway for myself. And then the next slide, please. So next is about students. So since we've all experienced like identity wheel, or what we've just done, cultural mapping ourselves, and we have the shock when learning like, wow, the culture doesn't mean what we meant. So because we experienced these, we know when students might be shocked, when students might need help, when students might feel lost. We know beforehand, so we can really design activities, we can rescue them when they need, we can guide them when they really do. So I'm also going to provide an example. So next page, please. So here's an example that was really horrifying, but it's also really memorable for me. So Unji and I had a synchronized class with both of our classes. So as my own teacher instinct, I just casually asked my students, oh, how do you feel about the synchronized class, and how do you feel like meeting? How do you feel when you meet these students? And I panicked, because although some students say that it was a really good experience, there are some students that kept telling me, no, they are not having a good time. They think that Koreans are blah, 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 blah. That's the moment that I really panicked at that time, because I thought that it was this activity, it was me that making them to have bad experience and to maybe form some kind of bias or stereotype concepts. So that was a really panicking moment for me. But this panic didn't continue for a long time, because I thought of a sentence that we read in the paper, which was from Durban. One does not meet cultures, but individual. So at that time, I calmed myself down, and I just divided my Blackboard into two columns. So next page, please. So one is similarity, and the other is different. So I asked students to write down what do they think after this synchronized class? What do they think? What are the similarities and what are the difference? So as you can see, if you know Chinese, you can maybe know something about it. And so from this board, students can really see that because they are just communicating with different people, they might see each other differently. So they have different experiences. So some people say that Korean students are talkative. Some people say that Korean students are quiet. So during that time, I guided my students to learn that they are talking to individuals that happen to live in Korea, instead of all Koreans look like this. So I think that I've done quite a great job, like to avoid have students forming stereotypes at that time. So yeah, so then I asked them to write a compare and contrast essay, so to torture them. But that's another story. So it was the reading and the reflection that we've done beforehand that really give me the ability to really solve this problem promptly at that time, instead of I need to go back and do a lot of research on myself. So yeah, that was really my takeaway moment. And next slides, please. So the next is that this is what I also benefited from. So because of all those discussions, we talk to others really deep into, we dig into our hearts and share really personal information. So I think that we know each other amongst teachers and researchers. So we feel really comfortable sharing our own thoughts and sharing that sharing that this material might not be comfortable for me to teach and things like that. And we know how to work with each other, so we don't really have bad feelings when we are cooperating. I think this is a lot of projects that couldn't achieve, because I've always heard a lot of teachers complaining when they are cooperating with teachers from other cultures, other countries. Yeah, but with these preparation, I think that we know each other and we feel comfortable to share. And so the collaborations was really smooth and really enjoyable. Yeah, so, and it became even better. Even when the project ended, we still stayed friends. That was really a precious thing for me. Yeah, so next page. So after this journey, and in fact, after every journey of my teaching experience, and I always ask myself, have I become a better teacher through this kind of experience? So yeah, I think I did. Next slide, please. So I think that now I really pay a lot of attention to the diversity in classrooms between cultures. And I pay attention to what I say, because I know that sometimes a word or a sentence that we don't really mind, we don't really pay attention to, might somehow create stereotypes or bias for our students. And also the materials we choose might have an impact on our students. So I really pay attention to all these things in my class. It's tiring, but I think that that's what is really good for our students. Yeah, so this is this is my sharing. So hope you like it. Thank you. Yeah, so now I'm going to hand it to Eunji. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Eunji Kim and I work in Sungmyeong Girls High School in South Korea. I'm so honored to be here and thank you for joining me today. I'm happy to share some of the most significant learning experiences from our year-long project. So what I'm going to talk about today is like these 2 points. First, journey for finding what culture and intercultural competence means. And number 2, what our collaboration, including sharing perspectives, lesson co-design, and feedback sessions means to me. Next, please. Yeah, up next, please. So at first, we explore the meaning of culture and intercultural competence. When people think of culture, they often think of culture of a specific country, such as Korean culture, Taiwanese culture, American culture, etc. Similarly, in my previous exchange program with New Zealand students, culture activities often included food, clothing, attractions, and school life. For example, these photos are what Korean and New Zealand students made to introduce their culture, like Korean food, attractions in New Zealand. Of course, it was exciting for students to know each other's country, but it was like kind of superficial cultural lesson. However, through extensive research, exchanges with teachers, and engaging in activities like the personal social identity wheels, it became evident that culture can represent a group, but may not fully encapsulate every individual within that group. Yeah, next, please. So, referring to an article which shows useful classroom activities where identity is used to introduce intercultural communicative competence, it says identities affect how they interact with other cultures. By developing an awareness of their own identities, they realize that they use different communication strategies based on their knowledge of the context and the people within whom they are interacting every day in their home culture. Students can use the same strategies when communicating with someone from a different culture. So first, to explore personal and social identities, we conducted an activity with students called the Personal Social Identity Wheel. It involved looking at individual aspects like hobbies, interests, experiences, and choices, which shape our unique identities and culture perspectives. And similarly, the social identity wheel allowed us to examine how social factors like age, race, gender, nationality categorize individuals in society. This activity revealed that these social identities have a significant impact on our experiences and the development of our personal identities too. And in addition to the personal social identity wheel activity, we also engaged in the culture map activity. The culture map activity involved students visually representing their cultural experiences, influences, and perspectives on their map. Each student had the opportunity to identify significant elements of their cultural background, such as traditions, values, beliefs, and symbols, and they depict them on the map. This activity highlighted the rich diversity within our classroom, as all students' maps were so different. It showed the uniqueness of their cultural backgrounds and allowed for meaningful discussions on the various influences that shape our cultural perspectives. So both identity wheel and culture map were helpful for students to learn about themselves. And then we did many things, but let me show you one of them today. As we progressed in our project, we turned our attention to the novel To Kill a Mockingbird, which is surprisingly included in both Korean and Taiwanese English textbook. I don't know why, but there is To Kill a Mockingbird in textbook. Our students first read the book and then read another article which discusses the debate surrounding its frequent use of the N-words. Students were then tasked with answering two questions. So should we read To Kill a Mockingbird? And the second question was, what makes you think so regarding personal, social identity will and culture maps you draw? It was fascinating to observe the variety of responses from our students, even though they were all Koreans and shared the Korean culture. Their answers varied significantly depending on their individual identities and culture perspectives. So first, students explored complex and multiple identities and how they shape their perspectives on the books. And number two, students recognized that their own identities play an important role in their evaluations of their literary works. And third, students developed a deeper awareness of how identities influence their interactions with different cultural texts. Next, please. Yeah, as Joyce also mentioned, we focused on this. One does not mean cultures, but individuals. So maybe I and students can define the culture as, and intercultural competence as, intercultural competence is the capacity to gain a profound understanding of both one's own and the other's identities, enabling us to communicate respectfully with individuals from diverse cultures. So, next, please. Yeah, and the next part will be what our collaboration means to me. Yeah, next, please. So first, engaging in collaboration with passionate fellow teachers, all for personal growth and development as a teacher. And as you know, the opportunity to exchange ideas and learn from teachers from different countries has been a rare and invaluable experience that has shaped my professional journey. And I could finish all this long journey because there is endless support of respectful teachers from whom I have so much to learn. And second, through respectful and open discussions, the sharing of diverse perspectives deepened my understanding of intercultural teaching and learning. And this project has highlighted the scarcity of opportunities for teachers to connect with educators globally, which emphasizes the need for more accessible platforms that enable the easy sharing of ideas and experiences. And third, collaboratively designing intercultural lessons enabled the integration of diverse knowledge and perspectives, which fosters intercultural competence among students and teachers. So next, please. Yeah, still, teaching culture is a complex task requiring a deep understanding of its aspects. As a teacher, I still often face many challenges in teaching culture to my students. However, I'm eager to explore creative ideas and strategies for incorporating cultural lessons into my English language class. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Haeyeon, Eunji, and Joyce for sharing your insights and lessons learned. So with the panel discussion, with the time that we have, I prepared just a couple of questions, but I Also want to make sure that we have enough time for the Q&A. So panel discussion, I think, will kind of flow very naturally into the Q&A. So I guess the first question that I have is, so connecting back to the title of our presentation, why do you think it's important for teachers to build partnership across borders? So that's my very first question. So Eunji and Joyce and Haeyeon, if any of you would like to tackle that question. Why is it important to build partnership across borders from the perspectives of the teachers, language teachers?
Okay, I'll go first. Okay, so for me, I think that it is really common these days that we have the opportunity to really engage in activities that is international, that is on an international scale, and students have to work with or discuss things with people from different cultures. So I hope that in school we can prepare this for them, and the most direct way would be having them having the opportunity to build a partnership with each other. And for teachers who build partnerships, I think that this sets a model for students to really know how to cooperate with people from other cultures. That is really, I think it is really an important thing for students to learn. Yeah, and also I think that it's more easier for students to notice the diversity between countries, because that is what culture traditionally means. So from them knowing that there are diversities between people from other countries, they might have the opportunity to look back on themselves and to know that there are also diversities around them, and they should really respect that. Yeah, so that is why I think it is important to build the partnership across borders. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Eunji and Haeyeon, do you have anything to add?
As I mentioned before, it would be very good if we have very good platforms where teachers can exchange their ideas about their culture lessons. Like building partnership across borders is important because it allows teachers to collaborate, exchange ideas, and learn from each other's diverse cultural perspectives. And it can improve our own intercultural competence, and then we became to have like competence to teach students. So yeah, of course if we have more chances because of technological advance, then it would be very great. Yeah.
Thank you. Haeyeon, do you have anything to add?
I think Joyce and Eunji said it all, but I've had such a great experience with working with teachers across borders. So I think, like Eunji said, I think it would be great to have teachers communicate through certain platforms, share their ideas on how to do cultural lessons, and maybe have teachers just, connect their students to each other so that they could experience such intercultural communication methods like when they're in school, so that when they become adults, they can be more open to such communication and also know how to deal with miscommunication when they do face it.
Thank you, Haeyeon. Actually, following up on this question, I think the next question is very similar to the first one, which is, now that you think about it, what does intercultural education mean to you? And how would you define intercultural educator?
Mhm. I've had 2 years of intercultural project experience. From my second year, I've learned that culture may not actually be limited to something that we learn from a certain country. Like everyone who lives in the same country may have different cultures. So I've learned that intercultural communication is really about knowing how to communicate with people with different thoughts. And I think as intercultural educators, it's important to teach our students to understand that culture may not be limited to a country. It's a characteristic of another person, and it's important to have an open mind and an understanding mind when it comes to understanding other people's culture,
Thank
values.
you. Thank you, Haeyeon. Inji, Joyce, do you have anything to add?
So for me, I think that I've been this issue really really like move me these days, because I don't know if there's any audience that is from Taiwan, but these days Taiwan has a few like huge news that some students from one of the most prestigious schools in Taiwan had a really biased, they talked about something really biased that really hurts the community of the Taiwanese community, and it's really hurtful to have found that. So I think that intercultural education is that students can know who they really are and who others really are, and they know how to identify themselves, how to learn to know each other, and they have to learn about the diversity of the world and people around them, so that they know how to respect each other, how to respect people that might not be the same as I am. Yeah, so that is something that really important. And so I'm not sure if I can call myself intercultural educator, but I hope that as a teacher, I hope that I can teach students how to do so, how to learn the diversity, how to tell students to respect each other, even though we are different. That is something that I really hope that I can do so. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Inji, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, like it is still quite difficult for me to define what intercultural education is. Like intercultural education to me means like fostering an inclusive and culturally sensitive, I mean, in terms of both personal and social identities, culturally sensitive learning environments that can promote understanding, respect, and engagement among students from diverse cultural background. Yeah, I think we have to know ourselves first, and then it seems that we have power to know others too. Yeah.
I think you just defined what intercultural educator means to you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I did have one more question, but I think with the time that we have, we'll go into the Q&A straight away. I believe we already have a question on the right side in the chat from Jane. Thank you for this lovely question. So I think the question comes down to for students who are not so willingly participating in the program, how did you select or find who to participate in the school? Were they voluntarily joined, or was there any benefit proposed to attract them? That's a really good question. Would anyone like to tackle this?
I don't know if I'll be able to produce a good answer for this question because I actually did not offer anything to my students. Um, but when I mentioned to them that they would have the opportunity to talk to students from another country and maybe build a relationship based on those conversations, they were already excited at the idea. I've worked with both female students and male students, female students who are excited at the idea itself, male students who are interested if they would be able to talk to girls from another country. And when I mentioned that there would be girls, they were excited anyway. So oh yeah, I cannot give a perfect answer for this question, but I did not have to offer anything. Like, but the fact that they were excited at the idea itself, I think it's a very good sign that students, in general, I don't know if I'm being too, but I think there is a chance that students may be excited at just the idea that they are going to be communicating with people across the country, across the border.
Yeah, I think that it's really common for students to really get excited when they are going to communicate with people from other countries. Yeah, even so yeah, at that time for myself, it was quite tricky because my students were in the 12th grade, which means that they are facing the college entrance exam for them. So it was really tricky for me to invite students to come and want to participate in this because they are always saying that, oh, so how does this help? I don't want to waste time on this. I'm going to have my GS80, blah, 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 blah. But so at that time, I told them that I try to incorporate into my own curriculum. So I asked them to write reflections so that they practice essay writing. And also, I told them this kind of experience can be incorporated into your writing, and they will, they might benefit because it is not that a common experience for them. And also, so as I mentioned before that I told students to write a compare and contrast essay to torture them, it is also a part that I didn't expect to do, but it came up and I grasped the opportunity so that students know that, oh, so what we're going to do is something related to writing practice so that they might gain something so that they are more willing to participate. Yeah. So yeah, that's my own experience.
Yeah. For me, first of all, the students in my school are very interested in using English, and I organized the program with the students in my class, where I am a homeroom teacher. So I think that's why they participated so eagerly, even if they didn't like it. And it's very interesting for them to communicate with people from other countries. But of course, there were some students who didn't show much interest. But for me, it was also a new educational experience to think about how to get them to participate actively. Those students prefer non-real-time, I mean asynchronous communication or written communication like chatting rather than real-time communication. So I try to encourage them more to go that way.
And just to kind of piggyback on that, I remember Eunji and Joyce had a difficult time trying to think with the high school exams coming up and college entrance exams coming up, you know, what would be the best way to help students understand, the meaning of this. And I remember because Joyce and Eunji as the teachers were so involved in thinking about the ways to do that. I remember them bringing their textbooks and really diving into like which of the components from their own textbooks, from the curriculum that they can pull from there, and really, embedded in the intercultural project. And that's how they came up with the To Kill a Mockingbird, because they realized that text was in both of the textbooks and something that they could really touch upon in relation to the intercultural competency element. So I feel like that's one of the tactics that they also used.
Yeah, that's why I included the readings from my culture class into the scope of the final exam. To make them study hard, that reading. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so Maytel also had this question. Do you think students today are more global in how they think compared with previous generations?
So to be honest, I don't think so. In my own experience, I have to say that first, but I think that students think that they look at the world in a more globally vision. But I think that, again, they are always looking at culture as the traditional definition of culture as a country. So they gain a lot of information through websites, internet. So they think that they know a lot globally, but I think deep down in their own perspective, in their own understanding, they don't really have a clear look toward what culture really means and how they understand culture. Yeah. So to me, I think that without education, I think compared to previous generations, students are still the same. Yeah.
I think in some way, because students have the opportunity they're exposed more. There's YouTube, so they have this unlimited resource where they can look up information about another country. So I partly agree with Joyce in that students think they know more. But I think in the sense of how to communicate, like how to keep an open mind, how to keep a considerate attitude when talking to people from another culture, I think they still need to be educated. So I think that's where education comes in. Like they are more globally, I think, competent in some way. Like they have the ability to search up more things via YouTube and internet, but I think in ways of how to communicate, they still need to learn.
Yeah, same here. Students are exposed to a lot of videos from other countries through various social media. Of course, those videos do not represent their culture, but at least students have a lot of opportunities to experience different cultures. So I think it's very important to develop intercultural competence to understand each other deeply and in the right way.
Thank you for sharing. I see Vincent's comment here. My experience with students is that they're too multi-focused, fragmented in their attention, and hence learn to focus more. COIL doesn't help much in this. Vincent, if you wouldn't mind, do you mind kind of elaborating on what you meant by this?
Yeah, let me just, I've dealt with students for 40 years now, more or less. So I've seen generation come and go. And clearly, what I'm saying, my experience with students at the moment, regardless of where they come from, indeed. At my university of technology, we have students from all over the world, lots of Asians, by the way, but also Europeans, obviously, and everything. So this type, I'm kind of generalizing their lack of focus. We all live in a fragmented world. I call that the zap culture as well, and that's zapping from one topic to the other all the time. And this is really what I've seen. And this is really the millennials, the Gen Z, whatever you call them. So I very often when I code them or the postgrad students, I try to focus on the fact that they should focus more on what they're doing. And try to focus, try to be more concentrated on what their studies are, etc. So what I'm saying here is that if you have a core like collaborative online learning, what you're talking about here during this webinar, I think this doesn't help much either to have a single focus, because as we know, online learning, online teaching is very often multi-focused, attention is difficult to keep, etc. So I just want to put that into some perspective of collaborative online learning is not easy to keep focus on one thing. So that's why very often I think we all prefer clearly to have more an on-site teaching learning than online. So I think, that's one that I wanted to point out here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vincent, for sharing that. I'm sure at many different levels, we all resonate with everything that you said, and narrowing down the focus, we actually found to be the most difficult work for all of us to do, and which actually required a lot of work, and which we also saw as the important aspect of really, narrowing down, and so that we don't confuse students, so that students can just focus on one thing at a time. And that's why we actually conducted it as like a mini lesson, as like one, like project, like task-based learning, where we would have like the overall one outcome, and then each step along the way would be kind of like a scaffolding towards reaching that goal. So I appreciate everything that you said. So thank you for sharing. Okay, I think we're kind of running out of time. So we would like to briefly share our contacts in case you would like to get in touch with us. We have our emails over here. You can also reach me via my LinkedIn. We're happy to discuss further about anything of our webinar today, any questions or comments. And thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you have a wonderful day or evening.
Thank you so much. And thank you all of you for joining, but a huge thank you in particular to our panel. And I found that fascinating. I thought we got some great insights from all of you, and really good to hear the actual experience and see things almost from that generational difference that many of us maybe are not dealing with, but the teenagers and so on. I like the idea that mainly they're interested in the handsome Korean boys or the pretty girls. So maybe things don't change so much. It's all about getting to know individuals, and the more that we can all do as intercultural educators to make sure that that's done in a effective and respectful way. I think that fantastic job that you have done, and I think we've all learned from what you've done, and thank you very much for taking the time, sharing it with us, and putting the contacts there. There's a request, I think, to put the contacts in the chat. Maybe somebody can manage to do that if you want to share. Okay, so great, you've done that. All of you, generational differences there, you're able to do that without blinking, so fantastic. And thank you all for joining again. We will be sending out more SIETAR Southeast Asia communications. As I say, we are aiming for this hybrid conference in November. Probably we're narrowing it down to the weekends of either the 18th or the 25th of November. We will have some activities maybe during the week, but we'll have at least one day where those of you who can make it can get together in person, which we all look forward to. Watch this space. So thank you again, and good night, good evening, good morning, whatever time of day it is for you, and looking forward to see you again. And thank you once again to our panel, and of course to Seiji for bringing it all together technically, and to all of the other members of SIETAR Southeast Asia for helping. So thanks a lot, and fantastic, lots of learning. Bye-bye.